Japanese spotters along the coast of New Guinea had grown used to the night sky whispering with danger. They had endured months of American raids, B-24s droning overhead, B-25s streaking low across harbors, P-38s sweeping daylight routes. But this was different. Men reported hearing a single aircraft they could not see, an aircraft they could not identify, one that did not sound like the thunderous radials they knew. It came low, slow, and then, without warning, death fell out of the darkness. At first, officers dismissed the stories as nerves. No American night fighter had ever penetrated this deep, they insisted. And certainly not alone. But the truth was far worse than anything the Japanese expected. A single, prowling, black-painted monster had arrived in the theater. It carried the name that made crews smile and enemies shiver, the Northrop P-61 Black Widow. And on one humid night in 1944, one of these strange, almost mythically capable aircraft would stalk the Japanese the way they had stalked Allied positions for years. It would hunt with patience, with cold electronic logic, and with an American crew whose nerves had turned steel through countless hours of flying through total darkness. By sunrise, 4 Japanese bombers would be missing, vanished into the jungle, sea, and mountains in less than 80 minutes, all slain by a single P-61 the Japanese never believed was hunting them. The story began days earlier, with a squadron already earning whispered fame, the 421st Night Fighter Squadron. They were newcomers to the Pacific, but their machine was unlike anything the theater had ever seen. Unlike conventional fighters, the P-61 didn't rely on sight. Its pilots didn't need moonlight. It carried its own eyes, an airborne radar set staring into the void ahead, marking targets invisible to human detection. Crews joked that the Black Widow was half airplane, half animal. It looked like a creature from a fever dream. Long, slender booms, a thick central nacelle, a narrow cockpit perched above a cavernous nose, and 4 cannons buried in the belly like the fangs of a hunting spider. For months the Japanese had dominated the night, bringing in supplies, evacuating officers, and probing Allied defenses. They believed they were safe in darkness. That illusion ended when Lieutenant William Red Thompson and his crew were assigned a series of patrols over an arc of territory where Japanese bombers still dared to venture. Thompson was a tall, red-haired Minnesotan with a calm voice and a pilot's reflexes sharpened by long hours of flying without a horizon. Behind him sat his gunner, Technical Sergeant Joe Mercier, who could lay down a stream of fire accurate enough to hit a moving truck from 2,000 feet away. And in the rear cockpit sat radar operator Sergeant Harold Slip Watkins, who knew how to interpret the glowing lines, ghost blips, and arcs on his scopes better than anyone in the squadron. Together they formed the kind of trio that night fighter commanders prayed for: fearless, coordinated, and capable of making decisions within seconds. Their orders on the night that changed everything were simple: investigate reports of Japanese aircraft moving south from Wewak. Intelligence believed they were evacuating key engineering officers. But reconnaissance flights had been unable to locate exact positions. Thompson's P-61, call sign Widow 7, would search the air corridors alone. They took off just after 2100. The air was thick, the moon barely a sliver. The Widow clawed upward, its twin Pratt & Whitney engines rumbling like distant trains. And soon, the entire world vanished into blackness. Watkins leaned into his radar scope, adjusting gain and sweep. For the first 30 minutes, the sky was empty except for drifting clouds. Thompson flew a weaving pattern, conserving fuel, keeping altitude near 12,000 feet. Mercier scanned the darkness outside, but all he saw was an ocean of stars. Then Watkins stiffened. Got something, he said quietly. He never raised his voice in the cockpit. Bearing 270, range 9 miles. Looks large. Thompson tightened his grip on the controls. Bomber. Too big for anything else. Thompson banked gently to avoid alerting the enemy. The P-61's radar was powerful enough to track from miles away, but its engines, despite their power, were quieter than most Japanese crews expected. Combined with its matte black finish, Widow 7 was practically invisible. As they closed to within 4 miles, Watkins updated speed and heading. He's on a straight track. Probably thinks the night has him covered. Mercier clicked the gun turret selector to manual. The 4 Hispano cannons were ready. 3 miles. 2, 1. Then, finally, a shape appeared against the faint glow of starlight. A Mitsubishi Ki 67 inches Peggy, one of Japan's finest bombers, gliding south with steady purpose. It carried a crew of 7, all confident that no one could see them. Thompson nudged the throttles forward. Coming in underneath, he murmured. No one in the bomber noticed the black shark sliding beneath their belly. At 200 yards, Mercier squeezed the trigger. The cannons roared. Tracers punched upward into the bomber's belly, tearing through fuel tanks, wiring, and the midsection where the radio operator sat. A flash, then a fireball erupted. Flames spread along the fuselage as the Peggy rolled uncontrollably, plunging toward the jungle below. Watkins marked the position on his chart. That's one. Thompson exhaled. Let's find the rest. Unknown to them, the bomber they had just shot down was part of a 4-ship formation, staggered by several miles to avoid detection. The remaining 3 continued south, unaware that their companion had vanished in seconds. But Widow 7 was already turning west, guided by Watkins' cool voice. I've got 2 new returns, he said. Both large. Bearing 330. Range 13 miles. They're moving almost parallel. Convoy? Mercier asked. Looks like it. Same speed. Same altitude. Thompson settled into a shallow climb. We'll take the trailing one first. Less chance of them spotting the flashes. The P-61 accelerated again, engines humming at 45 inches of manifold pressure. As they drew closer, the faint silhouette of another Ki-67 emerged. This one had defensive gunners, but they were blind. They couldn't see the dark predator rising behind them. Thompson matched speed. Mercier angled the turret. Ready when you are, the gunner whispered. Thompson nudged the controls. Mercier squeezed. Again the cannon spat a lethal stream. This time the rounds ripped through the bomber's right engine. The propeller shattered. Flames trailed like ribbons as the engine tore itself apart. The bomber banked sharply, losing altitude fast. 2 parachutes opened. The only survivors, but the aircraft itself exploded before it hit the trees. Watkins checked his scope. Lead plane just accelerated. Probably saw something. Thompson smiled. Let him run. He can't outrun this thing. The P-61 was fast for its size, and in a shallow dive it gained speed like a falling stone. Thompson pushed it to the edge. They closed the gap from 4 miles to 2 in less than 90 seconds. The third Peggy was a veteran ship. Its crew knew the dangers of American night fighters. The tail gunner, eyes straining in the dark, caught the faintest glimmer of movement behind them. Nagato, rear approach, he shouted. Too late. The P-61 came in low again. Mercier fired. The tail gunner's position disappeared in a burst of sparks and shredded metal. The bomber swayed, then a secondary explosion erupted as rounds pierced its bomb bay. Fire engulfed the wings. It spiraled downward, trailing smoke that glowed like molten gold in the moonlight. 3 bombers down, but Watkins wasn't done. Red, another return, bigger than the rest. 4 o'clock low, range 20 miles. He's way off the main flight path. Thompson frowned. Transport, could be, our command ship. Whatever it was too important to let go. They turned east. It took nearly 10 minutes to close the gap, flying through pockets of turbulence. The radar return grew clearer. Wide wings, slower speed. Almost certainly a transport loaded with officers or supplies, fleeing Allied pressure. Then, finally, they saw it. A Nakajima L-2D, a Japanese copy of the American 603. A workhorse, a lifeline, and tonight, a target. Thompson approached from below again, but this time he hesitated. Something felt off. The transport flew oddly slow, almost dangerously so. Watkins noticed too. Altitude's dropping. Not sure if he's damaged or just overloaded. Thompson made his decision. Joe, aim for the cockpit. We need him down quick. Mercier steadied the guns. The Widow climbed into perfect position. He fired. Half the rounds smashed through the cockpit windows. The rest tore through the left engine. The transport jerked violently, rolled to its left, and began a slow, doomed descent. No parachutes emerged. The valley below swallowed the plane whole.